Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Faith. Welcome to tHRive, the Transformational HR Program. For those joining us for the first time, thank you for joining. For those that have been with us for the past 2 weeks, it's been an amazing time. Thank you for joining. For those joining us on YouTube, we'd like to say a very big thank you for joining us. Thank you, Blessing, for joining. Thank you, Chinenye. Thank you, Obaseki Samuel, for joining us. Thank you, Elizabeth, for joining us. Let's just give a few minutes for others to join us. Can you all hear me?
I can.
Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. Thank you, Samuel. So we just give a few minutes for others to join us. Thank you, Rebecca, for joining. Thank you, Adewumi, for joining us. You're welcome. We are halfway through this conference. It's been an amazing 2 weekends of learning and unlearning. It's been mind-blowing. I'm sure you can agree with me. Would like to take some of your feedback. Can you tell us something that you've learned in this period of this conference? You can drop a message in the chat box, or if you'd like to speak, you can just raise your hands and would hand over to you to speak. Kindly let us know, tell us something that you've learned in the course of this conference. Just one thing. You can drop a message in the chat box, or you can, if you like to speak, just raise your hands and we'll give you the opportunity to do that. Okay, Obaseki Samuel says nothing compares to this transforming and performance repositioning conference. Thank you so much, Mr. Obaseki. Thank you for that. So we await more feedback. Can you tell us one thing that you have learned? One thing. And if you like to speak as well, we'll give you the opportunity to do that. Okay, so there we have 15 more sessions to go. Trust me, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. 15 more sections to go. We're still waiting for some feedback. What have you been able to learn? Just one thing that you've been able to learn in the course of this conference. Just one thing. Okay, Blessing says, I'm very grateful and thankful for the tHRive team for this wonderful HR training. I've learned so much about total reward and how to better position my firm in this new work normal. Fantastic. Thank you for that, Blessing. Ochinayan says it's my first time joining. There's so much for you to learn here today. So we still have 15 more sessions to go, and trust me, there's still so much in store for us to learn during this period. Today we're going to be looking at redefining productivity and building resilience. Please, can you all hear me? I just want to be sure that you're still with me. Can you hear me? Thank you, Samuel. Thank you. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at redefining productivity and building resilience. Redefining productivity and building resilience is going to be taken by Mr. Oluwagbemiga Ajomale. It has become important to redefine the way productivity is measured because of the new normal that we find ourselves in. And so today, Mr. Gbenga is going to be doing justice to this topic. He's going to be helping us to see how we can redefine productivity in this new times that we find ourselves in. Gbenga has garnered over 7 years experience across various sectors, including e-commerce, manufacturing, and professional services. He's a graduate of philosophy from the prestigious Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. He began his work life as a salesperson with Deal Day Limited, where he honed his human relation skills. He, however, made a transition into the HR practice after his diploma in human resource issued by qualification as an associate member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management, CIPM, in 2014. In 2015, he was employed as HR executive with Portland Paint and Product PLC, a subsidiary of UAC Nigeria PLC, where he performed HRBP functions for the organization's factory operations. On this job, he performed generalist functions while supporting the business in areas such as talent acquisition, employee relations, total reward, and HR administration. In 2017, he took up the challenge to head the human resource unit at Jackson, Etsy, and Edu, a professional services law firm, where he advises the business on people strategies, innovation, and implementation amidst global disruption in the HR landscape. Gbenga holds the Professional of Human Resource International (PHRI) certification from the Human Resource Certification Institute, that's the HRCI in the USA. He is also a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, CIPM. He has developed key interests in change management, cultural realignment, organizational development, and people management through capacity building, as well as linking employee career goals with corporate strategy. Can we give a warm welcome and a loud applause to Mr. Oluwagbemiga Ajomale? Mr. Gbenga, over to you.
Thank you very much, Faith. I really, really appreciate that. So today, like it has been said, we'll be talking about redefining productivity and building resilience. I'm just going to share my screen shortly. Okay. I hope you can see my screen. All right, so good morning, everyone. I guess you all heard the introduction, but for those who didn't hear my name is Oluwagbemika Ajomale, but you can call me Benga. All right. So when I was invited to do this presentation, I thought about, what are those issues that have emanated by the occurrence of a pandemic that people might struggle with. And by struggle, I mean sometimes you find that organizations have, you know, have things in their DNA culturally settled, in their work structure in such a way that they are unable to shift from it. And guess what? Any organization that is not fluid or that doesn't see the need to constantly review its processes, look inward and make amends and re-strategize at each point in time, is not ready for business for the future. And the truth is, sometimes they might have valid reasons for not wanting to change the way they're structured, but COVID-19 has, put every valid reason, quote unquote, to waste. Sometime in November last year, we all heard about the China virus, and everybody was just going on with their daily activities as like it don't matter. Um, and then gradually in December, we realized that it had spread through many other countries, in Europe and Asia. And somewhere, those of us here in Nigeria still felt okay. It was business as usual. It's a China virus. It happens to only the whites. And, we just put different stories around it. But organizations that knew what they wanted to do, organizations that had foresight, either by virtue of analytics or data gathering, they already foresaw that one, if a pandemic like this could get into the Africa region, right, it would inadvertently affect their businesses. So organizations have started planning way before it even the Nigeria first recorded its index case in February, right? So we as HR, I believe that we are strategic partners with organizations to help with um, strategic formulation, understanding where our risks lie, what our strengths are, things we need to do to not only survive but thrive. That is, outsmart competition, and of course, affect bottom line. That is, make profit. For businesses that have not been able to find their foot and were only waiting for the lockdown to be lifted before they could achieve good results, you could tell that truly they probably didn't have a good strategic planning session, right? For some other businesses, they've had to change their business model entirely. Some had even had to scrap some brands only to start making some new products to meet the demands of the market. So I always tell my colleagues in HR that if you are working in an organization and you are not one of the go-to guys for management in terms of advice, in terms of next line of action, then there's something you're doing that you're not doing right. People working in an organization are supposed to be your asset, right? And by asset, I mean you need them to be able to function as an organization, right? Gone are the days when you think that you're doing employees a favor by putting food on their table, right? In this day and age where everybody can choose to be innovative, start something. It's so alarming the number of entrepreneurs you find out there, those that are selling on WhatsApp, on Instagram. People can choose not to say yes, sir, to anybody. And I know quite a number of people who have left paid employment and have, decided to just chart a course for themselves and be productive in their own way, at their own time, in their own pace, and live by their means. So guess what? If the whole country goes that route, you really, really wouldn't have people working for you, or you could call employees. So guess what? You need to see them as assets, and also ensure that you put structures in place that would make them, you know, uh, um, um, that will make them productive. And by productive, I mean churning out results that help your business grow. Okay. So today we will be talking about productivity, like I said, and the time allotted, 90 minutes, is not enough to do justice to the topic of productivity, let alone how to build a resilient business. But I've decided that today would focus only on some aspects of productivity, how productivity is perceived. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of performance management. I'm aware that, there's another session sometime later today, I think 12 o'clock or 3 o'clock, that would, most likely do justice to performance management in itself. But I'm here to talk about, how HR has a very, very critical role to play in, setting standards for productivity, using performance management, employee relations, activities, and of course, cultural orientation. If you work in an organization and they are not, making efforts or making attempts to, um, you know, ensure that people are thinking collectively, now thinking differently as an organization, as a people, as team members. Take for instance, your sales team. They already know that, oh, this is how we have always, done our sales. We, identify, client prospects, and then go out in the market to have meetings. If your sales team is not thinking innovatively now, then you need to probably change your sales team, or guess what? Help them with the mind shift, how to become innovative in achieving results. Because at the end of the day, what your organization wants is results, right? Now, the elements or the things that are put in place to achieve results, are the offshoots of your strategic planning, right? And I said, as organizations gradually, are beginning to accept the new realities, right? Only the resilient ones would survive a reoccurrence of the pandemic. And of course, um, there are four facts I would like to share with you. Is that first, a pandemic never announces its arrival. A pandemic, even when you begin to foresee it, and that's if you're thinking right ahead of the pack, if you're using the right analytics, if you're using the right data, you can foresee that a pandemic might happen and understand how it might affect your business operation, how it might affect your people, how it might affect your product, how it might affect your brand, and every other element of your brand, like your intellectual property and all of that, right? But even when a pandemic announces itself, you just find out that when it eventually hits, you're not prepared enough. Like, I had thought I was prepared for the pandemic. I had put structures in place since December, right? And it, I thought that when it eventually hit, we would, relax. But it just spawned some other surprises that we didn't see coming, right? So you're never well prepared for a pandemic. Second thing is, you know, of course, COVID-19 is not the first. It's not the first pandemic to have happened in the world. It's just that many of us probably haven't lived through more than one, but it's not the first. And guess what? It won't be the last. It won't be the last pandemic that we would, experience as a people or as organization. And only the businesses, or only a few businesses that have been able to put structures in place, and done enough of resilience testing, building, business continuity plan, business recovery plan, can survive another pandemic. As it were, COVID-19 has shut down many businesses, and we all know that. Many businesses will not even rise again, right? And some businesses who have re-strategized have survived, but might not be able to thrive after this pandemic is over, right? So only businesses who have built resilience along their people, resilience along their product line, resilience along their processes, can survive a reoccurrence of of a pandemic, and of course will be able to thrive. Ask yourself, the brands like Coca-Cola, the brands like Pepsi, the Ford company, and many other businesses that are over 100 years old, have probably seen, have probably experienced more than one pandemic. But guess what? They're still surviving to date, and they're doing really good, right? Because at each point in time, they had the right philosophy, they had the right ideas, they had the right mind shift to approach things differently and move on, competitively in the market. Now, so today we'll be talking about uh, new approach to performance management, and here we'll be focusing on the elements of time and attendance, time as elements of productivity, right? And the dangers of doing business as usual. We would also talk about the shift that needs to be made, and we'll also be talking about some of the learning points from the pandemic. Okay. Um, just to be sure that you can hear me and I've not been talking to myself, you can just, say yes in the chat section so I know that, yes, you can hear me. Okay, so um, so productivity means different things to different people in different industries. Okay, what productivity means to me in the professional services industry as HR is different from what it means to another person in professional services industry as tax consultant, or as lawyer, or as immigration consultant, or whatever you call it, right? It also differs from what I would count as productivity in the manufacturing industry. Even within the manufacturing industry, the finance person, the warehouse person, the the accounts person, the supply chain guys will perceive productivity differently from the guys who are on the production floor, right? So productivity should not be seen from a singular, binoculars, or seen from one lens where you just assume that, okay, if we apply this rule to everybody, they'll be more productive, right? And we've seen this day and age that how HR comes up with strategy over time, like back in the day, we just assume that, okay, this is what works best for the people, and then you deploy. You realize that now, if you try that approach, you might only be, doing service to a very minute segment of your workforce, right? So employees view productivity in different ways, and some employees feel more productive when they're a part of a team. So if someone feels, oh, I'll do better if I'm part of a team, or that's when I get to work more, that's when I get to achieve more results. But you then put the person in a back end, function where he just has to come up with work on his own or our own and just do work alone, the person might not feel as productive. And guess what? The person might not even be able to come up to say, oh, please, I would like to be on a team, right? Now that people are even working from home in different, isolated, there's the need, the mental desire to feel as though you are a part of something. The people just feel that, oh, I need to, be able to communicate. Some people feel that, well, wait, we've been locked down for how many months and nobody has called me, nobody has even asked, do I still have my job? So some people feel the need to be part of a team so that they can, be satisfy the fact that they are relevant to the organization. While for some people, they feel productive in flexible environments. It's sad, and I hear that many organizations have gone back to work, in terms of the physical work environment, and I wonder what the HR person was doing. Now, for some people, we understand that they cannot perform their duties, out of the office. Take, for instance, your front desk person, for instance, can only do helpline from home, right? Can't really perform front desk, from home. But you would ask, how many people are coming to an office that is closed, right? But you also have some, offices that, probably receive, correspondence via, courier mail, and, handle physical items. So, the idea of flexibility around the workplace gives room for some people to be productive. And guess what? If you didn't think that, oh, everybody wants to work from home, you might just be missing it. I had done a survey and realized that not everybody wants to work from home. Some people just can't wait to get back to the office because it's not working for them, right? So for some people, working in a flexible environment makes them more productive, or they feel more productive. You just roll out of bed rather than, waking up as early as 5, 4 o'clock in some cases, depending on where you live, spend like 2 hours trying to get to the office in the morning. And then, but now people can just roll out of bed at 6:37, without having to look good, turn on their system and start working, you know. And in some cases, some people just, what, start their work towards the later hours of the day after achieving some personal goals that they have set for themselves, in their personal life. And then they start working on, the things or work tasks you've given to them, and they deliver, right? And for some people, they feel more productive when tools and opportunities for impact. So how would you feel as an employee if you work in a place that your job is, you can't really see that your job is adding value? You just know that, oh, I'm required to do routine tasks, just move this from here to here, sign this document, or, serve tea, or whatever it is, right? If you as an employee, feel that you have been empowered enough with the right skills, with the right tools to get work done, and you can also measure your own impact. Take, for instance, if if I'm a production staff in the manufacturing industry, and my job is to probably couple a box of Indomie, right? I can literally see what I'm doing, right? I can literally see the pack of Indomie that I have, put together and assembled for the guys who are going to load it, right? So in a day, if I do as much as maybe 500, cartons of noodles, I can measure myself. I can, see that, okay, I have been able to produce 500 cartons for this company today, right? So for some people, they just want to know that they are their job, what they are coming to the office to do every day, has some kind of impact, to your business or to the organizations where they work, right? For some people, being productive is all about delivering on their task, right? Delivering on their task. How it is done, where it is done might not really matter, but you asked me for ABC and I'm able to give you ABC, then I'm productive, right? And for some others, it's just the quantity of work done within the time allotted. So if you're giving, if on a normal day you are able to do maybe 2 metric tons of products, within 8 hours of your day, but all of a sudden you now find out that, oh, you're even able to do more than that within that time. So that's when you then begin to feel, wow, I'm able to tick many boxes off within this short time. And for some people, just meeting the client needs. So guess what? The only way you can really, really understand employee productivity is by, viewing it from one, the business eye, to see what would make us, increase our revenue, what will make us profitable. Those things are key in, identifying what works as productivity for the business, and then understanding how the people you have employed, how the people you call your assets, people who are critical to employees, who are critical to your success as a business, how they also see productivity. If there's a disconnect in the two, right, then you just realize that you're just surviving, you're not thriving, right? So sometimes you do surveys and try to understand your people, feel the pulse of your people, understand for clarity's sake. And that's why, I've attended several other sessions in this conference, and I realized that people, the place of analytics, not just analysis, the place of analytics, getting data and understanding. I remember sometime last year, early in the year, I was talking to, you know, uh, management, and I was advising that, we consider flexible work arrangements, because when I joined the organization, I introduced flex time. And flex time for the business was just, the time you resume is what determines the time you close. So you resume at 8 o'clock, you close at 5. You resume at 8:30, you close at 5:30, and just join. Yes, it was accepted, but I went further to say, yes, that has been done, but we need to do, you know, create a flexible work environment. And then some members of the C-suite felt it's not possible. It's not possible. It's not achievable. It's not realistic. It's not this. It's not that. How do you measure? How are you sure people will go to their people will stay at home? They'll go and visit friends. They'll do this, do that. And then how are you sure that they are working? And it was clearly seen as impossible. And guess what? The same people who have, you know, thought it was not possible were the same people who ran to me to say, that thing you were suggesting the last time, how about it? How can we go about it? We need to implement it, right? But in my own space, I had already started drawing out my plans, things that will be needed for the implementation, just for a day like this, when it would eventually, become necessary. Okay. So take, for instance, you're working in an organization where everybody uses a desktop, nobody uses a laptop, right? How do you work from home? If the pandemic happened like Ebola, it will be worse than we see today, because Ebola doesn't give you time. All it does requires is contact, right? So would you start unplugging people's desktops and having them take it home, right? So pretty much, productivity can only be reasonable, can only be valuable when one, it it adds to business growth, adds to revenue and increased profitability. At the same time, makes your people feel valued, makes your people feel like they've been able to achieve and make impact, makes your people feel like, oh, they are doing something. Imagine you work in a place and you can't even assess why you come to the office in the first place, whether your work is valued, or even understand what it is you're there to do in the first place. That would be clearly a disaster, right? So, in redefining productivity, in some cases, as occasioned, of course, by the pandemic, first we need to, keep things efficient. you know you need to work smart, understand what you have, resources, understand what you need, do your forecast, do your supply and demand analysis, and understand how you as a business are ready for the next phase of life, right? The next phase of life in some cases might not be announced. Government things as little as government policy, not necessarily a pandemic, can change your business existence for life. Recently, sometime last year, you saw what Lagos State policy did to the ride-hailing companies, and they went under. But guess what? Those who were able to act fast and act smart, quickly redefined their strategy and switched into the logistics space, where of course there was a deficiency. We didn't have enough guys in that logistics space as at then. But now, guess what? People don't even go out anymore. All they just do is, order something, send the delivery guy over there, pick up and deliver, right? We also need to eliminate non-essentials. We realize that in the traditional way of doing things, people were busy with many, many other things beyond their work, right? So they were probably in some committee, working in some other things, doing several other activities, though in the office, but not necessarily important or pertinent to their goals as employees or adding to bottom line, right? Now, I'm talking as HR for business, right? Would also talk about HR for the people because, of course, as HR professionals, people see us as the employees see you as in support of management. The management see you as always in support of the people. So you are always constantly in between the two, classes of employees. But get what? As HR, we need to always strike a balance. Look at what is best for the employees and what is best for the business. Because if there's no business, if the business collapses today, all these employees become, ex-employees. Many of them will find jobs in other places. They'll go on to do other things. Some of them will go on to become entrepreneurs, but the business is gone, right? So you need to cater for the business's existence as well as catering for the people that make the business survive. Okay. Now, so you also need to, after eliminating non-essentials, right, reduce. I call them baggage tasks that you can't even measure the impact to business growth, right? You need to eliminate them. There's some very nice to have activities that people do that really, really, in a time like this, we can do without. Okay, then you need to streamline processes, right? Processes in some cases and policies create bottlenecks, right, around the workspace. But as of now, with the emergence of a pandemic, many organizations have had to then tweak their processes here and there and review, the workflow to ensure that people are not having excuses of not delivering by virtue of the process, right? And so, for instance, one of your processes in your workplace was attendance process. You come in the morning, you must thumbprint, you must, sign in at the attendance place, blah, blah, blah. But with the pandemic, when you didn't even have to go to the office physically, or with the lockdown, you didn't have to go to the office physically, and your process is key. You now say, how do I thumbprint? You know, you should, nobody needs to tell you that that process needs to be scrapped and look for other ways where you can, measure, right? That thing that your time and attendance machine was meant to do for you, you're supposed to look for other ways, either by, developing a software or, buying a solution that helps you track, people's attendance. But in my opinion, as HR, we need to advise businesses that attendance is no longer a key element of productivity. And we'll get to that. But for some other industries, for some other businesses, take for instance manufacturing, of course, you need the people to walk the lines. So attendance is key. If you normally will need 100 people on the line, on the production line, to give you maybe 10,000 units of your product, and you are not able to achieve that number, there's a chance that you might not be able to produce 10,000 units. Okay, and we could see that during the lockdown, there were some products that were in higher demand than some other products. So we needed to, people need to start producing even more of those products. And the question is, do they sweat the 100 people that they're using to produce the 10 to now say, rather than producing 10,000, you're now required to produce 15,000? Or do they get more hands to meet that demand? So processes, we try as much as most processes are made for organizations, right? And they're supposed to be amendable, not rigid. So if your processes can be tweaked or re-engineered, you'll find yourself in a better position. But above all, to achieve productivity, we need to focus on setting goals. If as an organization and you have not considered the the essentiality of providing goals, setting goals for your people, then there's something wrong and it would definitely come out to haunt you. Guess what? So organizations that have annual goals, so you're a banker, for instance, or you are working in, I don't know, maybe you're working in a services company, and then your goal for the year is get in or convert 30 clients for the year. Pandemic has made us realize that we cannot sit down and measure a person's performance by those annual goals anymore. We now need to start measuring people by weekly goals, monthly goals, and of course, other time measurements for goals. It could be biannual. I mean, yeah, it might be quarterly goals and all of that. Why is this? I won't call it micromanaging, but because of the times that we're at, every small win for an organization is critical. So you don't have to wait for the big wins at the end of the year to say, oh, we want to do, the annual review and find out, oh, this person met their target. But the minute things, the two things it does for you. One, it makes the person feel engaged, the employee, where, we're checking with him. Okay, so how many clients have you spoken to today? How many prospects do we have? What is it looking like, right? And that way, if something is going wrong along the way, you can quickly nip it in the bud. Before a pandemic, we usually had team meetings maybe twice a month. But guess what? We started having these team meetings weekly, and we're able to arrest situations that we didn't even know we could have control over before the pandemic, right? So, as organizations, as your people, as teams, as supervisors, as HR, it's your position to advise your team members, advise management, advise other line managers on how they should begin to approach goal setting differently from the way they've always done it. Because if you do things the way you've always done it, you will always get the same results. But times like this require us to achieve different results. So you have to approach doing things differently. So so how do employees, organizations measure employee productivity? In some cases, we could see that some use revenue to measure productivity. Some use profit. Some use task management. Like I said, how tasks are assigned. Some use time tracking and some use attendance. But of all these five things, you see that which of these leads to business growth? Time tracking doesn't necessarily lead to business growth. It doesn't. Attendance doesn't necessarily lead to business growth. What your organization would see as growth is, oh, our revenue is up by X amount. Our profit margin is up by X amount or X percentage, and tasks are being delivered at the speed. Tasks are being delivered as and when due, right? If I'm an employee and all I do is come to the office, I am always in the office at 6:30 a.m. You don't know why I'm always in the office at 6:30 a.m., but I have just escaped terrible traffic all the way from Ikorodu or from Egbeda or Igondo. But as far as you're concerned, my clocking time is good. I clocked in at 6:30 a.m. every morning. That has not necessarily led to productivity. It has not led to any growth for the business. Oh, this guy never misses a day. He doesn't come up with excuses. He's always present at work. His attendance game is, give him punctuality staff of the year. You give him, those things are good, right? Those things are sexy to make employees, feel engaged. And I'm not saying we drop it, but I'm saying we focus on the things that matter at a time like this, right? If your boss, especially if you work in a small organization where for the boss, it's how often people report to work that he sees as value. Because guess what? He's paying you and he wants to see that his money or his salary is is being utilized judiciously, right? He wants to see that, oh, as much as he's paying you, you are, coming to the office. But it's in our place as HR to make him focus not on their presence at work, not on the time they devote to the office, but on the task, on the returns in terms of deliverables they're able to bring to the table. That way you can then say you have achieved results, right? Imagine every employee was timely, every employee was present, nobody had sick leave for the year, nobody had issues, nobody was, punctuality game was good, but the business is not producing, it's not churning out the results it requires, it's not profitable. You need profit to pay punctuality bonus. You need profit to, reward that person whose attendance game is good. You need money as a business to survive. So guess what? Focus on the things that lead to growth. And I'm not going into specifics because I know that we have people from different spheres here. Yes, we're all in HR, or maybe some people are not, but we're from different industries. And of course, what leads to growth in your industry, what you measure might differ across board, right? So for a salesperson in the bank, the amount of accounts is able to open, the number of people is able to convert, and all those things are, are are what cumulates into growth for a business, right? But for the guy who is punctual to work, he probably hasn't made as much impact. So I'm just saying in a nutshell that time tracking and attendance do not lead to growth, right? So the person who is timeous at work might spend 5 out of the 8 hours, checking social media, always on Linda Ikeji or Insta blog, guys always in the office, right? Some of them will just focus on their system and they're looking for new jobs, checking online, using your internet, some, spend that time dealing with queries and other interruptions. They're trying to get work done. Someone is calling them from the left. Someone is, asking for their opinion on the right. Yes, it makes them feel kind of important, but guess what? They're not able to churn out the results that is key to business, right? Some people just read news online, texting and chatting others, playing catch up, just gossiping in the office. But guess what? They were in the office, right? That's even when we were talking about physical presence in the office. At a time like this, at home, some people just even watch Netflix and chill. If you are the type that your organization focuses on a time tracking software just to measure, how people are getting work done, you clock in the morning. Yes, it's good to just keep people on their toes because, of course, human beings have tendencies to lack discipline, especially when it comes to things as such as time management. But guess what? Time management will not give you profit if you do not hold deliverables. Hold it fast because it is my deliverables that you need, not essentially my time. Yes, you might say that it's my time I would use to give you the deliverables, but I'm saying that as HR, it's our duty to advise organizations to focus on the things that matter, right? Which is deliverables. Like I was reading an article sometime back on productivity, and this came up from the New York Times that productivity isn't about time management; it's about attention management, attention to the things that matter, attention to the things that add value, attention to the things that would give you good results, right? Um, somewhere in that article, an employee was trying to get the attention of a C-level manager, and he said, "Oh, I'll need 5 minutes of your time. And the guy said, looked through his calendar and was trying to, see where he can slot just 5 minutes to attend to the guy. And guess what? His, his calendar was so booked that he didn't even have 5 minutes to spare to an employee who had work related things to discuss. So he suggested, you know what, maybe today I'll drink less water so that the time I used to go to the bathroom, I can cut it short and then attend to you within 3 minutes. So that was the only time he was able to spare. But guess what? The person who needs your attention or needed the C-level manager's attention was probably bringing something as important that would add to the growth. If you look at that person's calendar, because he was focusing on time, he was focusing on how many minutes he has allocated to this activity, how many minutes he has allocated, he has lost track of the things that are valuable. So you need to adopt agile system of management to see what are priorities, what are the things that would give me more results? What are the things that would, be of greater benefit to my business growth at this point in time? Not so much of how many activities I'm able to carry out within the time, but of those activities, right? What is it that I'm able to do that would be visible as profitable to the business? So I just did some checks and realized that if we focus on time management, at the end of the day, we are only able to analyze how much time is required to complete a task, right? If you focus on time management, at the end of the day, you monitor time so much that you end up realizing that you don't even have enough time. And there is never enough time. There is never enough time. As human beings, we have 24 hours. That 24 hours a day is divided or split along personal lines, work lines, right? Career lines. So guess what? As a person, most times we tend to now steal from our time as human beings, time as a family man, time as a church member, time as a friend, to compensate for my employer's time, right? But if we focus on setting priorities, identifying the tasks that achieve, like that lead to the most results, we realize that we're able to do more. And by doing more, it's not more in terms of numbers, but more in terms of what adds value, more in terms of what gives growth or what leads to growth, more in terms of what leads to more revenue. And that's what your organization will thank you for. If as a business you are probably the CEO, and then your employee comes to tell you that, oh, we were able to do this, we did this, we were able to call meetings, we had meetings with this one, we had a meeting with Dangote, we had a session with this one, and all of those meetings, all of those activities, all of those things, as fun as they sound, did not lead to revenue. But the CEO, you have not done anything as far as it's concerned. It doesn't lead to growth. It doesn't lead to repositioning. It doesn't lead to your brand outsmarting your competitors. You've only listed a bunch of activities that you know are not important to him or important to the business, right? So we need to begin to enjoy the small wins, right? We need to begin to take value creation as critical as possible, right? You find out that when you focus on time management, employees still find ways to cheat you of time. You say, oh, you have 8 hours a day. That's what the contract you signed says. 8 hours a day. In that 8 hours, if your focus is time, you find out that the employees would still steal some of that time, probably spend longer hours in the lunchroom, and then you have to then create too many processes to checkmate. You now checkmate time they logged in, time they logged out, time they spent in the canteen, time, the monitoring process is even is even ridiculous, right? But if your focus is the deliverable, you have deadlines, and I know that this deadline as output from you is input for another person. The moment you're able to deliver on those deadlines, the business is good for it, right? So as as an organization that focuses on time management, you would achieve less than when you focus on attention management. By attention management, we mean attention to the things that matter. You review whether a task is essential at the moment. There are many tasks that we can do as employees, right? And it's HR's function, it's HR's duty to ensure that we advise line managers as well. You see, sometimes you have employees come to you and they complain. Sometimes they don't come to you, but they come go to their colleagues complaining about how they are doing tasks that they feel is not necessary. But that's one that is not necessary is what their line manager seems to want, right? But if your focus is on attention management, you will be able to review whether those tasks are essential. I call them garbage tasks because they don't add any value, right? Right. You need to adopt agile system and focus on what brings the best result. I've said that a couple of times today. You know, those actions that would take, for instance, sometimes a person has to attend to this person. As HR, we attend to the production manager, we attend to the supply chain manager, we attend to the finance manager, and all of that. We all have tasks to attend to, right? If we set priorities based on time, meaning that the person that came first is the person I'll attend to first, we realize that we will not achieve as much result as attending to the person whose result would emanate to immediate gains. Immediate gains have become so essential in a pandemic like this, where businesses are trying to recoup funds. Businesses are trying to, stay afloat. People are cutting down on, employee costs as much as possible. People have lost their jobs. People's salaries have been slashed. And that's because, one, not enough money is in circulation. And when you have receivables as far back as December last year, September last year, and you approach the client and say, oh, your invoice of so day hasn't been paid, they'll tell you it's COVID. But as at when it was due, COVID had not happened. So as a business, it is HR's duty to advise on how to approach task management, performance management, and productivity to achieve as much as immediate goals as we can achieve, right? Now, deliverables on deadlines, like I said, is supposed to be perceived as paramount. Deliverables on deadline. If you're focusing on the time that the employee spends on deliverables, you might lose track of the deliverable itself. So don't focus on the time, but the deliverables, right? And by so doing, you realize that more is achieved than when you focus on time. Now, like I said, as HR, our priorities need to shift. Our priorities need to shift to cost optimization, right? There are many things we do as HR just to keep the workforce happy, and those things are good. There are many things we do. We want to do employee engagement activities, team bonding. We want to project our employees as the best. Brand positioning, very key, right? But guess what? Because we have scarce resources by the pandemic and we don't know the turns it will take, yes, people are beginning to feel that, oh, it is flattening out, the curve is flattening out. But we've learned some lessons. In many organizations, you realize that one, in terms of rent, you don't even need the space that you have rented out. You've rented 2 floors in a very nice building, but everybody's working from home, right? So, how have you been able to advise business? Let's introduce this. Let our people, let's cut down on our expense for rent. Let's cut down on our expense for electricity. Let's cut down on many other things that we do. Now, some parts of cost optimizations are no-go areas, especially when they are backed by agreements and bound by contract, right? And attempting to go that route might lead to some legal implications. However, as much as possible, When it comes to the people, keep your people happy. The effect as much as save cost. So you're keeping people happy uh, effectively, right? Because guess what? We have to now. Some organizations deployed employee assistance programs several years ago, and they realized that people were not using it. You deploy EAPs, people were not using it, and you kept paying for them, right? But in this pandemic, there are many employees who probably lived by themselves, and the only thing they had going for them was coming to the office, interacting with colleagues, going back home to their solitary life. Those are the guys that need EAPs. They need people to talk to. So I'm not saying that you should take away the things that help your people's mental state. I'm not saying you should take away the things that make your people feel happy. I'm saying take away the things that you know don't add real value either to the people or to bottom line. Right? Cost optimization is very key nowadays. I'm sure working from home, people have had to use less paper, right? If your processes are still um, heavily dependent on physical paper documentation and all of that, then there's a lot of things going wrong with your business model. You know, return on investment. Now is the time to see how you can further invest on your people, but investment is meant to be tailored for returns. So whatever training you are doing, whatever employee engagement activity that you're doing, that you cannot see immediate returns, it's not advisable to go on them. Because the smaller wins are easily, measured and are better for business at a time like this, right? Digital transformation is where, without digital transformation, this pandemic would have wreaked havoc, right? Sometime last year, many businesses moved from their typical Microsoft to Office 365, right? Or sometime in 2018, Office 365 has become so essential to to uh, to the workplace, such that people are able to collaborate, using SharePoint, using Teams, using Yammer. It just makes the workplace even more interesting and allows for ease of doing work where you can collaborate on job tasks. Your people feel like, oh, you empowered them. But if they were made to use the traditional way of, typing a document, sending it out, and then letting them review it, and then sending it back, it might be as tedious as you can imagine, right? Providing tools, ensuring that your people have high-speed internet, having all the resources they need to communicate, collaborate, and make impact. Those three things are very key, right? Now, employee engagement, like I said, it's a critical part of work in the new era, right? Communication, the type of culture you have. If your culture was toxic, this is an opportunity for you to change it. There are many organizations that have been able to change toxic work culture on the basis of COVID-19. An attempt to change it before now would have been very difficult, right? So now you're able to lie on the back of COVID-19 and make the changes that you need to make, right? Take, for instance, like I said, working from home was impossible, but now we can achieve it. HR innovations, COVID-19 has given us a window for us to grab and make impact, right? Reward and recognition. The people have found themselves having to do more, while some people have found themselves having to do less in this pandemic. But as people, we need to identify how much, impact an employee has been able to make, how much deliverables or how effective is the person's, job function or work task to business. And we need to recognize them and in some cases reward. It helps with motivation. If you think that people are losing jobs and there are no jobs in this pandemic, you are joking. A lot of people are finding jobs. A lot of people are changing jobs, even in this lockdown, even in this pandemic. So we need to understand that our employee retention game has to be top notch, right? Keep your employees motivated. They're dealing with a lot of things. They're dealing with psychological issues. And if you thought that, oh, working from home is making people just enjoy life, you might just be missing it. Some people find it difficult even working when their kids are there. Some people find it difficult because the power situation in their area is not as good. So they have to burn their petrol, power their houses, and do all sorts of things just to get work going, right? So you have to look out for your people. You have to care for your people. That way they feel motivated and better productive. Okay. Then accountability. If I work in a place and I have people who are, you know, uh, who I am accountable to, if I feel the need, if I feel like I am accountable to a cause, I feel better on my job than I'm just doing my job. I don't even know whether I'm being measured. I don't even know whether I am valued. That sense of having to make impact is critical for every human being, right? If I work in a place, maybe that's for me personally. If I work in a place and I'm not being checked, I don't feel the sense that I'm accountable to a cause. I feel detached from that particular space. Okay, so we need to ensure that we, as HR, check in with our people, right? Not just following up on work tasks or how they are doing in terms of the work, but also check on with them to be ensure that they have the they're in the right frame of mind, basically. And this, as HR, we now need to stop acting as police. In some organization, if HR call you, that's the end. But as HR of the future, people need to be happy to see a call from HR. Oh, HR is calling me, and they feel like, oh, this has to be good, right? Let's take away anxiety from people and let's make them feel even more comfortable on the job. Now, as I said earlier, we need to, provide as much support for the business by redesigning the work structure. Where you have big teams, you need to break them down into smaller and manageable units where people can, easily collaborate. If you had a team of 10 people, right, you can easily break them into molecular teams of three, and so that they can collaborate easy, work easy, and give you those, uh, um, micro goals and wins that you might need per week or per day, right? Create a support system for teams. As HR, either we create helplines and ensure that we are always responsive for our people at a time like this, before we can easily wait for our people to come to us and with complaints or needs. But now we need to check in with them and ensure that we are catering for their needs, right? It's also HR's duty, like I said, to advise. We play advisory roles to leaders and to managers on realistic goal settings and success factor. What we could count as success factor 5, 10 months ago is not what we would amount to success in a time like this. So we need to understand how we can, garner quick wins, then equip employees. If your employee tells, I know of an organization that has sent a mail to all their employees to come and pick their chair so that they can feel comfortable working at home, or pick whatever it is they need to work at home, right? Some people work on their beds and their backs hurt. Some people work in different funny positions just to get the job done. But equip them with the physical things they need, the resources they need. If you are working in the legal services industry and you know that, oh, your library is where people needed to go to get, documents or to, get their work done. Now is the time for you to look for that software. Either it's practical law, either it's a lawyer, whatever it is that can electronically bring all that information to them for their use, right? Then, like I said, process reengineering. We need to look at our processes. Not all processes need to be changed, but there are some parts of our processes that we need to remove, redesign, and change for good success, for productivity to be achieved, right? So it's HR's duty to look at those policies, look at those processes, procedures, and see how we can help the business, oil the wheel of, performance. Then risk management. A lot of risk has been attributed to the existence of a pandemic. We can't take away the fact that um, um, people, you can't account for your people at all times, right? Since the advent of pandemic, we've had employees who have traveled to different parts of the world that you never could have imagined, and they're working from there, right? So you need to know how exposed you are. I was at an event recently, a webinar, and issues around remote working were brought up, and the question is, um, do employees who are working from a far distance from where they work have to pay their taxes to the new location where they are working from, or their taxes are still remitted to the the place where their establishment seats, right? So there are several issues that have come up, and as HR, we need to understand the legal implication of those innovation or structures we have put in place to survive the pandemic, so that we're not exposed, to regulatory issues, right? So let's ensure that we constantly monitor and track all our people-related risks that have been occasioned by, this pandemic, and of course, protect your people as well as you protect your business. You need to protect the people as well. Now, I mentioned digital transformation. I said everybody, we need to leverage on digital transformation as, on technology rather, as drivers and enablers of productivity, right? If you, we've now seen a rise in the use of applications as little as WhatsApp for corporate use. So teams are now collaborating on any means possible, any medium possible. You have your department set up on WhatsApp, you now have your micro teams just to aid communication. Now, this thing also helps us, as much as this thing has now increased the frequency of meeting. Some line managers are the type who like to see face to face, and because they can't see face to face, they've set up Zoom meeting almost every 3 hours of the day, right? These meetings would take time, right? These meetings would just consume your time, and you realize that you didn't achieve much, but you did a lot of meetings. So we need to leverage on technology and see if we can chat on some of those tasks rather than having a proper meeting to discuss those things. You realize that people do more rather than they say in a meeting if they did not do those meetings in the first place. So one meeting a week is okay. If you have to do opening meeting in the beginning of the week, closing meeting at the end of the week, based on your work process. There's no one size fits all for any industry. There's no one size fits all for all departments or units, right? You need to know what works. But what I'm saying is, whatever you are adopting, let it be such that you are able to achieve more and you are able to meet the business needs, right? Then, like I said, create as many as possible communication channels. You can introduce Teams, you can introduce Zoom, you can introduce WeChat, whatever it is that your people feel more flexible or more convenient using. There is no barrier to communication anymore. There is no barrier to ease of doing business. People that thought, oh, SAP or Oracle or Sage or all those applications were expensive have now had to invest in those applications just so that they can ease the flow of doing business, right? Internal process. You can't be worried about, meeting clients' need and also be worried about internal processes, how to, how to make the work move smoothly. So if you can use technology to solve one aspect of it, you realize that it cascades into overall productivity. Like I said, I've talked about reviewing work processes time and time, right? And rely less. Of course, we have no choice but to rely less on physical engagements. We need to then, if for instance your process required document signing and you never believed or you thought e-signature was too much of a risk, now is the time to either encode your security features and ensure that okay, you've legalized the use of e-signatures on documents. There's been arguments back and forth as to whether it should be accepted or not, but guess what, those were back in the day. Now you cannot but accept electronic signature as a means of verification for or validity for communication. So if your processes require you changing that, please change. But guess what? Any change you are making at a time like this needs to be communicated, right? You cannot make changes to your work processes and not communicate to stakeholders. Stakeholders being employees, stakeholders being vendors, suppliers, stakeholders being clients, right? So now, building resilience, we need to understand that after now, when this whole pandemic is over, you realize that some businesses have come out even stronger, right? And you also realize that some businesses have not been able to do more than just surviving the pandemic, not to talk of the businesses that have died, right? In the wake of the pandemic, I know that where I work, we have about maybe 75 to 80% international clients, right? We received a barrage of, you know, business continuity plans to say that yes, the pandemic has hit us in our country. However, we're open to doing business. These are the things we have put in place. These are the things that we have going for us. And some other vendors, some other clients will tell you, okay, guys, can you prove to us that we can continue doing business with you in this pandemic, right? So we needed to put out our business continuity and do several resilience tests. We had even locked down our office before the government announced lockdown, simply because we wanted to be sure again that we were ready for an imminent lockdown if it happened, right? So we needed to, of course, communicate to our people, let them understand that these changes are happening just so that the business is protected as well as the people we cater for, right? Those who would find it difficult, if you noticed when the working from home started, just like every other change process, some people found it really difficult to cope with it. Some really found it very difficult to cope because they couldn't understand the fact that I wake up in the morning, I don't have to rush to the bathroom, take a shower, and get on the road. Some people, you know, it affected productivity in some cases, it dwindled. But some people who had the right mindset were able to hit the ground running and, even enjoy it better. Some had special time for their kids. That time that they would spend in traffic, they were able to use it to, attend to their kids and do other personal things, right? All those ladies that will have to, on Third Mainland Bridge, do makeup, you know, while they're driving, they didn't have to do all of that anymore, right? So a lot of changes had happened in the workspace, right? And then a lot of people dealt with these things differently. People dealt with it differently. But for a business to build resilience for, take for instance, a reoccurrence of a pandemic like this, we need cultural reorientation. We need to ensure that one, our people are ready for anything as it comes. When I say anything as it comes, because of the uncertainty around it, nobody knew the forms it was going to take. So because of the uncertainties around it, we needed to ensure that flexibility and the dynamics of doing work should be on the front burner, not just building processes and entrenching them, right? Then businesses need to strengthen their brand, and HR has a critical role to play in strengthening brands. Now, brands are sold by products, yes, but brands are better sold by the people, right? We've had people talk in this session about employer branding, And it's very critical as HR that we do not joke with it. In all our functional areas, be it recruitment and selection, talent acquisition, and all our career development or organization management strategies, we should ensure that that brand that we work for, that brand that we where we work is as much as projected in good light as possible, to ensure that everyone that comes across that brand wants to associate with it. Now, a Coca-Cola has so strong a brand that it would survive the test of time any day, anytime, right? Either from the brand products, from the product perspective itself, or from the people perspective itself. If someone tells you he's working in Coca-Cola today, you without a doubt, you know, accept the fact that, oh, he's working in a good space, right? So we need to communicate our brand as good as possible. So if you're the person doing recruitment and selection, where an employee doesn't meet requirement, communicate to them and let them know that, oh, sorry, we've not been able to go ahead. We will not be able to go ahead with your recruitment at this point. You can check out for other available roles. That way, the person feels better about the recruitment process than um, absolute silence, right? So whatever it is we need to do, right, we need to ensure that all our processes, all our procedures as HR is covered and is further strengthened to put the brand in good light, right? The interview process is also key. How you treat what's it called, interviews. Now it's most interviews are done virtually, so the issue of delaying someone in the lobby should not arise. Imagine we set up to have interview virtually now, and I've turned on my system for the for the interview, and the interviewer is not here, or is taking his time to join in the meeting, and it says it's testing my perseverance or it's testing my patience. All of that is absolutely scrapped now. We need to make extra effort to project our brand as good as possible. And that, of course, includes process redesign. Like I said, interviews have changed. Now it's virtual. Learning and development has changed. Now we don't put people in a class or send people. We just look out for how we can redesign either our e-learning platform, or how we can adopt some other vendors like LinkedIn Learning and all those other tools, to ensure that we're able to improve capacity, build capacity and competence, even while we are adopting different means. Now, it has come with its own cost implications, but we've also learned that this lockdown has also helped businesses save money, right? There's so many people that would have sent to Dubai for training, sent to Abuja for training, spent extra code, paid for their flight tickets and all those other things. Yes, those things are good to make the employee feel good, but at the same time, we are now able to achieve similar results by spending less. All we just need to do is deploy the learning platform, and then find a way to measure the knowledge and the knowledge retention, and of course also find a way to share those um, do sort of knowledge management within and retain those knowledge. Business analytics, very essential. Only businesses, like Dapo said, was it yesterday? Only businesses that were able to predict occurrences like this, were able to plan. And without data and analytics, you really cannot build resilience around your business. If they tell you in the US today that a storm or hurricane will hit, right? You do everything possible within your power to ensure that you are protected from the hurricane, right? The same way, data is key. By the time you nut all the information, you gather data as much as possible, you are better prepared to ensure that you have the right people to do the right job at the right time in the coming years, in the immediate future, right? So you need to constantly do analytics, understand how the pandemic. So sometime in June, many organizations started doing surveys as to how many, knowing the demography of their workforce in terms of how many people want to go back to the office, how many people want to continue working from home, how the experience has been, what it is that the business can do better, and all those other things. You find out that some people want to go back to work, some people don't want to go back to work. That way, you're able to know, okay, going by the variables we have, we don't need 1,000 square meters in terms of office space anymore. All we need is like 200 or 300 square meters. And then you redesign, your physical workspace to cater for those people who need, and people need that social interaction, just need the feeling of, oh, I'm going out of my house, I'm going to, the office, just even if it's not every day of the week, at least every other day or twice a week, just for them to leave their house, leave their four walls, right? So we need to use analytics to ensure that our business is ready for whatever comes our way. And above all, client satisfaction is the bedrock. If your client is not satisfied, then it's pointless being in business. Client satisfaction is the bedrock. So whatever it is you're doing, either your cultural reorientation, you're strengthening the brand position, you're redesigning your processes, you're doing, using analytics, it's all meant to cumulate into achieving client satisfaction, because it's only when the client is satisfied the client will pay you. It's only when the client pays you you make revenue. It's only when the client pays you it's only when you make enough revenue that you make good profit. And of course, if the client keeps coming back, you are in business. Now, I know it sounds as though I am speaking for just the business and less of the people, but guess what? I still believe strongly that as much as we cater for our people, if the business doesn't exist, we will not have people to cater for, right? So, thank you very much. I don't know if anybody has any questions with regards to how to address productivity and focusing on the things that matter, and the small wins in achieving organizational productivity. If you have any questions, I would like to take them now.
Thank you, Mr. Gbenga. Thank you for such an insightful session. We would like to take feedbacks now. How was the class? I totally enjoyed it. It was so insightful. So you can drop your feedback in the comment section. Okay, so feedbacks are in. Thank you. Very detailed and insightful. Well done, Mr. Gbenga. Such an amazing session. Thank you very much. Thank you for those feedbacks. We would also take questions now. So you can drop your questions. If you have any questions for Mr. Gbenga, you can drop it in the chat section. And thank you for the session. It was slow and steady with patience and passionate teachings. Thank you very much, Kemi. Thank you. Very insightful. That was from Rebecca. Adedoyin Esther says very impactful. Adewumi says thank you for the impactful section. Juliet says day by day we keep getting mind-blowing outcomes from the sections. Thank you. I'm sure that's supposed to be Mr. Gbenga. Well done, Mr. Gbenga. Very clear. Elizabeth says you really redefined productivity. It was insightful. Thank you so much. So I'll be taking questions now. Okay, so I have one question here. It says, is it the HR's responsibility to set goals for the organization or the executive management?
Okay. Should I take that, or okay, let me take that first. So, that goal setting is a function, and once the business has set up, has agreed on the strategy it wants to adopt for the period, it's cascaded down into the smaller departments or the smaller units, right? It's not HR's duty to, as much as HR participates in strategy. Of course, if you're HR and you don't participate in strategy, then you're not doing anything. You're just doing execution. But if HR is participate in strategy, you have an idea of the direction the business is taking for the period, right? And HR plays critical role as either HRBPs to support the business lines, to support the business heads, to support the line managers in goal setting. Now, you can't set a goal that is in itself separate from the strategic goals. So take for instance, if the business says, "Oh, we want to set up, want to enter new market, or want to set up in more locations than we currently are," right? As HR, one of our aim is what will be the people need for those new product lines, or what will be the people need for those new locations, right? Just the same way the supply chain person will say, okay, so what are the things or requirements for setting up in this location and how can I come to play, right? So everybody will pick theirs from the strategic objective of the business for that year, right? But HR has to then play the role of advisory to those other business units because those goals and those KPIs that are set for the people, right? And HR knows its people, or HR is meant to know its people. So in a time like this, we are supposed to advise line managers as to their approach to setting those KPIs. If we leave them to set those KPIs just as they are, right, we realize that there will be certain KPIs that are probably not achievable because of the times that we're in. So in a time like this, we need to play roles in advisory, advising those line managers as to how they should approach. Take for instance, as I'm working from home, I have the issues, I have anxieties that I'm dealing with. I'm in the house. I'm not used to my life going out. So I'm not in my right or the same frame of mind as I would be if I was going out on a daily basis, right? At the same time, I'm incurring cost on power. The children are eating more food. And also I have things I'm thinking about. So if as your line manager, all you're doing is setting KPIs that would, clash with my mindset at this time, I'm not sure you will get as much result as you would. So we need to support these business units by providing for them not only the equipment they need to achieve success, but also participate in the goal setting, no matter how minute it is, right? Because in the end of the day, at the end of the day, when they're doing the performance appraisal and all this, we are the ones that will collate it and know what each person has done for the year, right? And sometimes when you're collating, you realize that wait, this person couldn't have achieved success with this kind of KPI that was set for this person, right? Some KPIs that were set in January of this year have been truncated. And if you did not, if you had to wait for mid-year appraisal, for instance, to be able to, redesign the KPIs, you realize that you've lost how many months, right? So right from, February, March, those KPIs needed to be reviewed, those goals needed to be, reassessed. So HR plays key role in advising line managers. Some line managers will just move on like as it don't matter and hold you accountable by those KPIs. But HR needs to go back to those line managers and say, guys, now let's call our team members in and let's review these goals that we have set for the year and see which realistic goals we can set in line with the new strategy or new direction that the business has decided to take.
Thank you so much, Benga. Thank you so much. Okay, we have some more questions, but before I take that, Umar Shiru says, "Thank you very much for this wonderful section. I didn't want to attend the session because I was mandated to, but after listening for a while, I stayed glued and I'm glad I made it in. Keep up the good work. Cheers." From YouTube, Uzoma says, "Insightful." Esther says, interesting section, very true to life. So I'll take another question now. It says, Mr. Gbenga, I want to know how all you have said can be applied in SMEs where HR's inputs are mostly not consulted or taken before decisions are made by the owners, but are left to handle the crisis from employees.
Okay. So trust me, I've been in this position before where uh, you just dump things on HR, to go and implement. They don't consult with you, and when push comes to shove, you are the one at the forefront to face the people issues, right? What you need to do is, first of all, begin to add value. By adding value, when I say begin to add value, you need to present yourself as essential to the growth of the business. So if you're good with data analytics, for instance, you need to come up with data unsolicited, right? And present it to your manager and say, this is where we're heading. If we don't take this step and this step and this step, this is going to happen. If you do that the first time, they wave it away. The second time, they wave it away. The third time, you begin to receive acceptance. Trust me, even if they don't physically accept you as, vital to strategy, the time will come when they will call on you and say, hey, that thing you were talking about the last time, can you shed more light on it, right? Now, when the people, you can't take away the fact that people issues will be brought to your desk. So all you need to do is be prepared for it. But you need to find your way into the heart of management and stop, as much as possible, do like a perception management. The activities that you carry out as HR will determine how you are perceived by the owners of the business. If they see you as someone who is just policing around, they will leave you to police people. They will leave you to, make sure you are catching late comer and all those other things and not invite you to strategy. But when they see that the things you're doing are impactful for the people and essential for business growth, they will call you to the round table. Where I work, my line manager or the CEO calls me every now and then. In short, sometimes he just call you at 8 p.m. and he's just trying to ask what you think, right? It might not even necessarily be a strategy session. Just having periodic and time to time talk around how to further improve, the business, right? That way they would not skip you. In short, if you are not in a meeting, they would ensure that you are in that meeting before anything strategic is discussed, because they know that it would always hit back on the people. And when it hits back on the people, you would be needed. Okay. So make yourself relevant, I would say. Make yourself relevant, and competence is key. If you are seen as being strong in some areas. Now, for some people in HR, they're not good with strategy. They're not good with process development. They might be good in other things, recruitment, selection, and all those other things. But in terms of strategy, they might not be good, and you can't force it. Best thing is upskill, put yourself relevant on the table at each time, and then you would realize that you will be the number one or number two or number three go-to guy when it comes to strategy. But as for people issues, you cannot go away from it. The only thing is that strategy was developed, but you are now invited to face the issues that strategy has caused. So rather than just facing the issues, you need to find yourself a seat on the table where the strategy is being implemented, so that when they are facing the issues, you know that now me cause the problem, I did part of the people will go solve it.
Okay, thank you so much. I have one more question here. It says, are you saying it's the line manager that should set the KPI?
So it depends on the structure of your organization. Um, Line managers are in most cases the ones who set KPIs, but the key result areas are in most cases generic and of course tailored to business goal or corporate objective for the year. So your result, of course, you can't be achieving results that doesn't speak to the strategic goal of the business. Every result you achieve must tie to something that in the overall, goal of the business, right? So line managers who are responsible for functional areas understand how their people would be essential to achieving those goals. So take for instance, if I am in accounts, right? I might be in the best position to set up the KPIs for the management accountant, for the auditor, for the treasury person, and all of that. But in most cases, it's best that KPIs are set in collaboration with HR, for measurement sake and for decision making. Because guess what? If you set up KPIs and HR is not aware, or HR is not, on that table, or involved in the process, and then the person has not met those KPIs, right? And then you then feel that this person has consistently fallen below the threshold for performance. You then want to either lay off the person, suspend the person, or reprimand the person as well. You can't do that without HR, right? So when you are now doing that process, you now invite HR. HR will then look at it. HR is not supposed to act based on the fact that, oh, line manager says we should suspend this person or sack this person or cut or do whatever it is to this person, right? HR will have to look at the root cause and what is being recommended, right? So in looking at the root cause, HR can even discover that, wait now, how can you set this KPI for this person? You know that this is not achievable, right? But it's already too late. But if HR was involved in the KPI setting in line along with the line manager, by the time, and KPIs, when you're setting KPIs, you don't set KPIs for setting sake. You set KPIs and let the person accept the KPI. So we sign off. It's an agreement. You would achieve XYZ, XYZ, XYZ in so time, right? So the person signs off, I agree to do this, and it's documented. So by the time the person is deviating, HR knows that, okay, yes, it was an agreement we had, right? So line managers are to set KPIs, but in collaboration with HR in most cases. But if, of course, if it is too big an organization, well, maybe the HRBP might support in terms of the functional areas, but at the same time, HR has a role to play.
Thank you so much, Benga. We have another question here. It says, what should be done to line managers who do not care?
Okay, so those are people problems, personality issues, some line managers who don't care. HR cannot really do anything without understanding why they don't care. I've seen line managers, when I engage them and say, why are you treating your team members like this? And the person tells me, when I was reporting to this person who left this firm in 2001, and you need to say, I've not even done anything. So some line managers really, really are a product of what has been passed down to them. So we need to adopt, EQ methods to ensure that people that are appointed as line managers, or people who are selected as team leads, are not just technically competent, but also fit in terms of person skills for the job role, right? So in assigning the person as line manager, you must have assessed some qualities that the person has. But now some people, you say some people change. Yeah, he used to care before, but all of a sudden he doesn't care. You need to understand why the line manager doesn't care all of a sudden, right? But guess what? If the line manager doesn't care, the question you then ask is, what doesn't he care about? Is it that he doesn't care about how the people, how his team members feel, or he doesn't care about how his job functions will fit into organizational goal? Two solutions. If he doesn't care about how his job function fits into organizational goal, therefore we'll realize that he's not making any addition to the organization, and then he might have his head rolling for it, right? That one is a corporate decision to make. But in terms of interpersonal relationship with the team members, take for instance, I have someone who is working from home who has 4 kids, right? Creche is closed. I can't, or schools are closed. I can't send the 4 kids to school. I have to take care of them while I'm doing work. The line manager is meant, HR is meant to communicate with them and probably have a session with all seniors or all managers and make them realize the need to, even if they don't mean it, sound as empathetic as possible, understanding that people are now in new times and new situations. So, like I said, it's our duty to advise, it's our duty to coach. In some cases, it's our duty to recommend what should be done, right? You don't expect that the way you'll be talking to your employees in the office is the same way you'll be talking to them now, because many of them are in different positions. Some people have, they leave the house in the morning, escaping their landlords as early as 5 a.m., run to the office and come back as late as possible. But now they're in the house. Their landlord can knock at their door anytime. So people are in several situations now, right? So it's your duty to coach the line managers on how, they should approach employees differently in a time like this. Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gbenga. We have some feedback here. It was sent to the panelists, so I'm just going to read it out. Uchenna says, thank you so much, Mr. Gbenga. You really nailed it. Mr. Obaseki says, good morning, fellow attendees. I tried to encourage us to participate with this through YouTube yesterday, but not sure it was captured, hence the repeat. Adlam team, as well as our valued and profound facilitators, have put a lot on this transforming conference in making it an outstanding and competitive success, comparatively speaking. And the best I think we can do as attendees and taking it as a responsibility is to appreciate them by visiting Adulam LinkedIn page and comment on some of the takeaways and how these sections. You can tag the affected facilitators have aided our HR transformation for strategic performance repositioning. This is just an encouragement for every participant to do. So you can visit our LinkedIn page and continue the conversations there. Thank you very much. So I'll take this very last question and we'll call it a wrap for this section. Okay, so I think I have more questions, but I'll just try to go through them. Somebody here says, could you please give us some practical examples on cost optimization?
Okay, so cost optimization. So as an organization, you have a purse of funds that is available to you. And in some cases, HR has, of course, you have HR budget and allocated funds. Now, cost optimization, as I refer to it, means first identifying the key task or the key activities. There are some sexy activities, for lack of a better word, that is nice to haves. The nice to haves activities should come later. Now, the key activities are the activities that should receive, priority in terms of funding, right? And then when you talk about having cost-cutting measures, take for instance, of course, now that things like stationery, use of stationery has been put on the have been reduced to the barest minimum. Cost optimization in terms of learning and development, I mentioned it earlier, that now you look out for how you can help your people upskill, do trainings. Before now, if you deployed LinkedIn Learning and you check your evaluation or you check your metrics to see how people have been engaging on that, it was very low. People would not even go there, even when you have set targets to say, okay, you have to do this module, and this module. But now that they're working from home, we've also seen a spike in people's utilization of those modules, right? The time that they would have spent in traffic, they are now using. So cost optimization is looking across all the functional areas of HR, right? If you're going to do, let's take for instance, talent acquisition, recruitment and selection. You travel in some cases to the north to go and carry out interviews. You carry out, interviews in several other ways, and then the way you advertise for the jobs, you spread them out and all of that. But now you realize that you can then streamline your cost. All you need to do is, at best, get a paid version of Zoom to ensure that all your interviews are done on thereon. You don't need to fly to interview Southwest region or all those. Everybody can come and interview. That's a way of cutting costs. Some businesses that are not future smart would still be waiting for the pandemic to be over so that they can go back to the way they do things, right? Apart from that, uh, you also need to, of course, things that are entitlements by contract, you might not be able to touch them. Like I said earlier, take for instance, in my benefit breakdown, I have components such as HMO, I have components such as status car, I have components such as group life. All those things, because they are contractual in terms of benefits, you cannot touch them. But things that are not backed up by any agreement, things that you normally would have spent money to do, um, um, for fun activities, right? You can. I don't know your industry, so I might not be able to, answer the question as custom made as possible for you. But it's your duty to look within your business and see those things that you normally would have spent money on and how you can cut back on them, right? By innovating and finding new ways to doing those things. Okay. Um, Let me see. One other example that I think you can adopt is, some people would at this point in time sell off assets that have no that are now obviously, not needed anymore, right? um, if I look at the amount that we would have spent on foreign trips in terms of marketing, attending conferences and all of that, it's alarming. Now we've been able to use that money to clear out other expenses or payables that we had pending, right? um, there's also the approach I mentioned earlier, spaces. There's so many companies in the UK that I've read have said they are no longer going back to physical office and they'll be closing down their physical office, right? Some businesses cannot achieve that because their business, their operations have to have, physical entities like physical presence, right? But even at that, they can reduce or sublet some part of their rental space and all of that. But in our little way as HR, let's look at how we can cut cost and channel that saving into other things that will better position us. Because at the end of the day, paying staff salaries very essential. And for me, we did everything possible to ensure that we did not let go of anybody. Since the pandemic started, we maintained all our staff and we are paying salaries. So we're able to channel those costs and make sure that we find a way to keep those people productive in their different locations.
Thank you so much, Benga. I'll just take two more questions and we'll call it a day. Um, Praise says, who is to assess or appraise senior executive staff and set their KPIs?
So, so you should have okay. Which other question am I answering? So just in case I can answer the two together.
Okay, I think the second one is more of a comment, so I'll just take it after you're done with this question.
Okay. So when it comes to assessing and appraising senior executives, the if your organization doesn't have a structure, now is the time for you to put it in place. As HR, draw out your organogram and have the proper flow of accountability drawn out in your organogram, right? If your structure is such that the CEO is accountable to a chairman and the chairman is a member of the board, right? The CEO's KPIs is set by the board, right? And the CEO is the one who appraises senior executive. Do you understand? So it depends on how your structure is. But if you do not have a clear picture of what the structure looks like, right? If you have a GM, for instance, the general manager reports to someone. The general manager has his set goals. If he is GM operation, part of his KPIs for the year is to ensure that the company operations are, you know, the company runs smooth operations at the barest cost the minimal cost possible, right? So if you are the CEO, you are to, or except there's an ED, there's someone between the the CEO and the CEO, or you have a COO, Chief Operation Officer, who the GM operations reports to. So that way, KPIs are cascaded from the top. After strategy is done, you look for how your own job function fits into that strategy and how you can achieve results from your own space. And then that way is cascaded down. The GM will also set KPIs for the people, reporting directly to him.
Thank you, Benga. So I'll just take this last question. Um, this person says, my boss doesn't consult anyone. He's a one-man mopo. He doesn't consult anyone, even when offered ideas. He does what is in his mind. He believes in the past and old method of doing things. Imagine him introducing time spreadsheets when I try to convince him that deliverables is the way, not time measurement. He said, what do I mean? That this has been working since 1980, and if it worked in the 80s, it will work. Sincerely, I don't offer him advice anymore or hate to do it because I know his response. So what do I do? He hurts but can't eat. But I think this person is trying to say, I made up my mind to walk away. So I guess he or she is trying to ask, what can I do if you find yourself in this kind of situation?
Okay, so this is typical example of a small business with the owner of the business in charge of the business, right? Uh, so there are two angles to it. There's a personality angle where whatever it is you try as HR would not work, right? So sometimes what I would do in this position is to shield the people, right, as HR, using policies and procedures to ensure that, I retain the people. Because if you don't, that same bad energy coming from top would affect the people, and they'll be leaving. And then the top will tell you to replace them. So your work just keeps getting, repeated or cumbersome. So you try as much as possible to shield the people and get them to stay, introduce things that will make them stay. However, in dealing with the one man mopo who clearly doesn't take advice, trust me, it takes advice for some people. But those people are people in his set. So they might be in the Ikoyi club, they might be in in one of their hangout spots, and they're talking. But they're taking advice from like minds. So how they did things, clocking machine, timesheet, and all those other things back in the day is how they know it to work. And you can't blame him, it's his experience. Now, his level of exposure to the 21st century, and the future of work, I want to believe you probably don't have too many people, too many members of Generation Z in your office space. You probably have maybe more baby boomers, right? And that way you might have issues, or what's it called, the Generation X, right? If you as HR come up with data to show him or her that, look, timesheet has only been able to achieve X result. This person is the most punctual person, always signing in as early as possible, but is not able to do much. This other person is not always the first to come into the office, is not always the first to clock in, but we're able to see results with that data presented before him in his right senses or in our right senses. They will know that you are making a point. They might not accept it at the first time or the second time. It's not enough for you to approach him and say, oh, sir, this is not the way to go. This is how it's supposed to be done. No, you need to be able to provide data. Nobody sees data. Numbers don't lie. Nobody sees data and says, no. Ego might not allow him accept it in the first time, second time, but he will gradually come around. But HR has to make efforts. And by efforts, you need to accumulate data. Now, God help you, the person who is performing, person who is coming early is also the one that is performing high. There's problem because that data would only prove to him that punctuality is equal to good performance. But if you have someone who doesn't come in as early or who doesn't clock in as required or all those things, but he's performing better than people that do, then you have data to back up the point. Hmm?
Thank you so much. It's been an insightful section. Any final words, Mr. Gbenga?
Uh, so I think that our work is cut out for us as HR professionals. We have quite a lot to do, and the more efforts we put in, the better we are for it. I'm sure that even in our space within ourselves as HR, many of us are in competition. When I say competition, I mean we're in the same industry, working for different organizations that are competing against ourselves. Where you would see results, or you would know that some organizations are doing better than some, right? By virtue of the outcomes. Those outcomes emanated from the critical thinking and the assessments done by some people in the organization. So where HR is doing their best to ensure that the workplace is the best, to ensure that the brand is standing, tops amongst its peers, you'll find out that some other places the HR is sleeping on its ears and is not achieving good results. So let us all here, those of us who have attended this conference and attended all these sessions, go back, implement on those things that we think are learning points, and find a way to make sure that we have put in our input to take our businesses or companies to the next level, to greater heights. That way, right, we can then see that HR is not just one place that people go and sit down, or HR is not just a cost center. HR is a strategic partner for every business to achieve growth. So let's go back to our workplaces. Let our line managers, let our bosses, let our CEOs know that we've been somewhere, we've had new insights, and we're ready to change the workspace for good.
Thank you so much. It's been a very interesting section. All of the feedbacks that we've got about this section has been amazing. So we call it a wrap for this section. And the next session starts at 12. We'll be talking about building a high performing organizational culture. I look
Kemi's
forward
Ola
to,
Sally. I want to quick. Sorry, Faith.
yeah,
I'm reading Kemi's
okay.
messages, and I can see that it might not be a healthy environment, where you work right now, and sometimes even data might not help at this point. Emotional intelligence is very important at this point in time. And I think that even when they begin to insult you and stop wasting my time, like you have said here, uh, it's smart to sometimes retreat, re strategize, and explore other options in achieving results. Some line managers are just you don't even bother going to them, or don't even go to them with your ideas. Sometimes implement those ideas, but use discretion. Implement those ideas, make sure it works. When the ideas work, the line manager was not aware when you were carrying him along. You didn't carry him along, so you achieved results. He sees the result. He might not say thank you for it. He might not clap for you, but in deep down in his mind, he knows that, oh, this person has gone out to do what they thought best, and it worked. He might now come to say, but I did not sanction it, I did not approve it, blah, 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 but you have achieved result. Even if he doesn't see it, someone higher than him or senior to him would see it and, recognize it. All right. So don't lose hope. Some people are difficult to deal with, but don't lose hope, Kemi.
Thank you so much, Benga, for that. Thank you so much. So we see you all at 12 o'clock. Thank you very much.